We're going to stick with that sting. How nice to spend your working life in an ancient library or cloistered academic building, surrounded by wood-panelled niches with plaster-cast busts of famous Greco-Roman scholars. Such is the working environment for those studying and teaching classics at Cambridge. But it's about to change. Those sculptures of the great thinkers of antiquity will soon have signs to explain their whiteness. Here's Andrew Doyle to explain. Can you?
I sort of can. So, in the Archaeology Museum at Cambridge University, it has been decreed that signs need to go up next to these plaster casts of various figures from ancient Greece and Rome to explain why they're all white and why they give an impression of a lack of diversity because of their whiteness. Of course, the reason why the plaster casts are white is because unpainted plaster casts are white.
It can't be that simple.
I think it sort of is that simple. See, all of this has come out of the fact that after the killing of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests, a number of students and staff members contacted the Faculty of Classics at Cambridge and said, we need to acknowledge that the subject itself is systemically racist. What are you going to do about this? And then what happened is the faculty decided that they would do so, and they implemented what they're calling an anti-racist action plan. Part of that action plan, well, part of it is actually trigger warnings on various texts, you know. And of course, I would have thought if you're going to study classics, you know, it's a litany of violence and sexual violence.
Quite a lot of blood and gore.
Quite a lot. I mean, if you want to look for sexual violence, look at Ovid's Metamorphoses. But you know, it's a bit mad that someone would think to study classics if they had a kind of fragility when it came to sex and violence. But let's leave that aside. That's part of the action plan, is the trigger warnings. The other part is this is another part, which is to add these signs to explain the whiteness of the plaster casts. It is particularly ridiculous, this idea that, and it's quite a dangerous idea, that the study of classics in of itself is white, elitist, a racist subject. That really has to be countered. I mean, that was put to rest back in the 70s, in the 80s, with classicists like Frank Snowden, who wrote about the fact that colour prejudice in the ancient world was non-existent, that these cultures were ethnically diverse. Mary Beard has written about the way in which ancient Rome was ethnically diverse. You would have Syrians, people from Algeria, people from Africa, so this is a kind of an anachronistic imposition onto this culture that is coming about because of very contemporary concerns that just don't really make sense at this time. So I think there does need to be a discussion about this, but what's particularly disturbing, I think, is that it's come from the faculty. I mean, a number of the scholars who've been quoted, who've been spoken to about this, they all think it's ridiculous. They all know it's ridiculous. And one of them even said, had this come from students saying we need a sign to explain the whiteness of the plaster cast, I would get it. But it's come from the faculty.
Yeah, it's not the first time that's happened, has it? But we haven't got time to go into previous examples. Not if we've got time for this story, because time was when a pub was a welcoming place where people could exchange frank views in a spirit of convivial disagreement, sometimes. But from Scotland, another story to remind us how the debate about trans rights is turning polite debate into something else. It's the story of Marion Miller and a Green King pub in Edinburgh. Andrew, I've teed it up beautifully. You take it from there.
Well, this was this Saturday. As you know, the festival is on at the moment. A group of women, between 50 and 20 women. Marion Miller was among them. And Marion Miller, I should say, is an accountant who has recently... the police are intending to prosecute her for tweets. Now, to give the context to this, I have to explain that a number of women who are gender critical, in other words, women who are concerned about the risks to women's-only spaces, domestic violence, refuge centres, that kind of thing, prisons, etc., the risks that are posed due to gender self-identity, they're being called TERFs, T-E-R...
Trans-exclusionary radical feminists.
Exactly, TERFs, and that's become like a slur for gender-critical feminists. This group of women are gender-critical feminists, and they're not anti-trans. They don't think that trans people shouldn't have the same rights as everyone else. They're concerned about the safeguarding implications of gender self-identity, OK? So that's the background. And a group of these women went to this pub. They booked 2 tables, and they went in there. And the bar manager and the various staff there claimed that they felt unsafe. The bar manager said that the customers were feeling unsafe and threatened by the mere presence of these women. Now, I wasn't there, obviously, but I have read what the bar manager's account on Twitter. I've spoken to a woman who was in the party that were there that were thrown out, so I have a good sense of both sides of this argument. The bar manager actually said, and this was her tweet, "Mother of effing God, you'll never believe who I had to kick out my bar, literally TERF." So not metaphorical TERFs, literal TERFs, and saying they felt threatened. I should have kicked them out the minute they appeared. And then various misogynistic phrases, including the C word, to attack these women. Now, bar managers now said that TERFs will be banned. She also called the police, by the way, at this point, on the women.
Because she felt unsafe.
Because she claimed that she felt unsafe, the staff felt unsafe, customers felt unsafe.
Even as Taliban fighters were surrounding people in Kabul, showing us what safe and unsafe really looks like.
Quite. Well, their argument is because one of the women had left a leaflet in the toilet. This is the Edinburgh Fringe. There are leaflets everywhere, by the way, and the leaflet was promoting her cause, the gender-critical cause. But I saw the leaflet. It wasn't an offensive leaflet in any way. Two of the women were wearing slogans on their T-shirt, which were feminist slogans. Again, not offensive feminist slogans, just offensive slogans. What's interesting about this is, if we do live in a society where a bar manager or anyone offering a public service can ban you or call the police and get you removed for your opinions, this opinion, by the way, being one that is protected by law, then what kind of society are we living in? What does this do to this whole debate? I mean, there's a reason why this debate is so toxic. It's not helping trans people, of all people. It's reduced to mudslinging, demonisation. The idea of being a TERF is the equivalent of being a witch. I mean, this is the equivalent of a kind of witch hunt, and I've looked through both sides of the account. And what's worse is, as with every form of hysteria, other people get involved who weren't there. We've had India Willoughby, the broadcaster, tweeted about this, saying anti-trans squads are now touring pubs in Scotland, whipping up fear and hate. She compared these women to incels. So India Willoughby doesn't know what happened here. She doesn't know these women. The hysteria of that. No, anti-trans squads aren't touring pubs. Women are going for a drink. That's what's happening, right? We've also had it from Lorna Slater, co-leader of the Scottish Greens, saying nobody should be abused or harassed at work. That's what she said there. The tweet is also talking about being consistently misgendered because an article in one of the newspapers...
Don't worry, because Lorna Slater's now a minister in the Scottish Government, so everything will work out just fine.
Oh, I mean, this is the thing. So this whole debate about gender-critical feminists and trans activists is infecting politics majorly, particularly the SNP and the Scottish Greens. And there you have a prominent Scottish Green MP making huge speculations. No one was being harassed. No one is accusing anyone of harassment either, apart from the bar manager. But by her own account on Twitter, this wasn't harassment. It was the sheer presence of these women. Now, I think, look, maybe there's something that I don't know that happened here, but I've tried to get a good sense of both sides. I can't see it, and it will be very, very interesting to see how Green King respond, because this is one of their pubs. I think they're launching an investigation into it.
You'd hope so.
I think we have to, because ultimately the debate has got far too toxic now. And as I say, because there are now political ramifications to this, unless people can sit down, can have a discussion and say, look, one party believe that gender self-identity is an issue and does compromise women's safety. The other side say no, and this is why. Let's discuss.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.